Today's guests on Insight are Judge Asa Kelley, Dr. Richard Anson, and Dan MacDougald. Today's topic on Insight is the Ethical Education Program. And now the host of Insight, News Center 10's Lisa George.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Insight. At a time when there is a crime explosion in Georgia out of proportion with the rest of the country, resulting in prison overcrowding, the Ethical Education Program, which has met considerable success in Dougherty County, is also in danger because of lack of funding. To discuss that today, my three guests join me. Dr. Richard Anson is with the Criminal Justice Institute at Albany State College. Dan MacDougald is the Crime Prevention System Coordinator for the Dougherty County Superior Court. And Chief Justice Asa Kelley of the Dougherty County Superior Court.
That's Chief Judge.
Chief Judge, excuse me, Judge. As I just said, let's start with you, Dr. Anson. There is a crime explosion out of proportion in our area in the state and South Georgia, out of proportion with the rest of the country. Why is that, and what are the effects that we're seeing because of that?
Well, I think there's a number of different factors involved with it. If I had to pinpoint two predominant factors, one would, of course, be the drug problem. I don't think that's necessarily a problem with Dougherty County. It's a national problem that has impacted Dougherty County, and I think a second factor would be the increased professionalism when it comes to crime reporting. The Albany Police Department has recently made a concerted effort to fine-tune their crime reporting, and because of that we find that the crime trends are much higher. We went from, in 1969, to a little bit less than 700 Part 1 crimes to, in 1989, a projected crime rate of somewhere in the order of 11,400. So I think that's a little bit of cause to be concerned. And if you look at the rates of increase that go on from a year-to-year basis, since 1985, we've increased much higher than the state of Georgia's rate of increase as well as the national rate.
Okay, Mr. MacDougald, with those kinds of figures, how important is an ethical education program? Does that make it even more important at this time?
But it's impossible to reduce crime without reducing individual criminality. And you can do it by confinement. They can't get at you if they're in the prison, but there are not enough prison spaces. So in matter of practice, the only way to reduce crime is by the ethical education, which is the laws of decent behavior.
If you would explain exactly what we mean when we say ethical education, what kind of programs are we talking about?
Well, it's teaching a person the laws of decent living and helping him honor those laws. If he does, he learns them and honors them, he won't be an offender before the courts.
Can you really teach ethics and morality?
Well, you can teach them, but getting them to learn it is something else. The ratio is about 60% reduction of individual criminality over 20 years. And we struggle to improve it. And it looks like the drug vendors struggle to make it go down. And sometimes we win, sometimes they win.
Okay. Judge Kelley, the reason we're discussing this topic today, of course, the ethical education program has been in place for a while in Dougherty County, but now there is danger that it will not continue or is not continuing at its current rate. Indigent offenders are no longer eligible because of lack of funding, and juveniles. If you could go over a little bit of the funding structure, where the money comes from, and why we're having a money problem
in the
now.
past, the county has funded what we call the Crime Prevention System, which is a network of activities including ethical education. It also includes test upon arrest by the emit machine to determine drug use, psychological evaluation, psychological classification, as well as a psychological stress evaluator. And all of those tools go together to make a crime prevention system. And ethical education is an integral part. As a matter of fact, without it, the pretrial release program will be practically ineffective, for the simple reason that before one is released on a pretrial release, he must first at least learn some of the fundamentals of ethics. And you know, ethics is a word that comes from the Greek, which means simply morals, which translated in everyday language is nothing more than principles of conduct by which people are supposed to live. And it's absolutely essential if we are going to meet the crime problem. Now, the military has demonstrated in the past that it can be done. As a matter of fact, Camp Pendleton in California, the Marine base in California, reduced its drug usage and crime rate substantially to the point now that they practically have no drug problem and very little crime on the Camp Pendleton. And they do it by using the same procedures that we have in place here in Dougherty County. But all of them are necessary if we're going to succeed. And ethical education, which has been in the past funded by the county and recently by the county and the city, is one of those necessary ingredients if we are going to be successful and do those things that we know can be done, which have been demonstrated by so effectively by the military. Now, you know, the military commander has a lot of authority. And if he can't get a serviceman to do those things that he thinks he should do according to the principles established, then he can discharge. Well, I can't discharge anybody from Dougherty County, but I have a lot of authority. I can put him out of circulation, put him in prison, or put him in jail, if I had a jail or prison to put him in. But it doesn't make any difference, really, anymore, how much time I give a person, because he is released according to a guideline established by the Pardon and Parole Board, which is a part of the executive branch of government. And we never know how long a person's going to be gone. I gave a man 10 years not too long ago, and he's back in 4 months. And it's just, what I'm trying to say is that we cannot solve the problem by sending them to the state penitentiaries, because all they do is warehouse them. There's no effort to rehabilitate, there's no effort to train, there's no effort to do anything except to keep them from killing each other. And we know with absolute certainty that 98% of them are coming back to the city from which they're sent. And when I send 25 or 30